When I saw the bank statement, I thought it was a mistake, a missing zero, a clerical error, something that could be fixed with a polite phone call. But then I saw her name, signed neatly at the bottom of the transaction. It was my sister's handwriting. My chest tightened. I sat there at the kitchen table, surrounded by unopened bills, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the house. My daughter, Lily, was upstairs asleep, her favorite stuffed bunny tucked under her chin. She had no idea that the future I'd promised her, the college fund, the small home by the lake, the trust I built to protect her, had been quietly rewritten behind my back. And the person who did it wasn't a stranger. It was my own sister, the woman I trusted most. My name is Brandy Matthews. I'm 38 years old. And for most of my life, I believed family was the safest place you could fall. My parents raised us to believe that blood meant loyalty, that love meant honesty, and that family always came first. My sister, Charlie, was 5 years older than me. She was the responsible one, the straight-A student, the early achiever, the one who always seemed to know what to say when life got messy. I used to follow her around the house when we were kids, mimicking everything she did. When she braided her hair, I braided mine. When she played piano, I'd sit beside her, tapping random keys, just to be close to her. By the time I became a mother, Charlie had already built a life of her own. She worked in finance, had a husband who traveled often for work, and no children. I used to joke that she had spreadsheets instead of kids. She'd laugh and call me sentimental, the emotional one of the family. When my daughter Lily was born, I didn't hesitate to ask Charlie to be her godmother. She cried when I told her, real tears, the kind that streak mascara and soften the hardest eyes. "I'll take care of her like she's my own," she said, her hands trembling as she held my newborn. "You can always count on me." And I believed her. Those first few years were golden. Charlie visited often, always with gifts, a teddy bear from London, a tiny gold bracelet engraved with Lily's initials, storybooks with handwritten notes on the inside cover. She'd take Lily out for ice cream or to the park, and Lily would come home glowing. "Aunt Charlie says I'm her favorite girl in the world," she'd tell me. Charlie had a way of making you feel safe, seen. I never imagined she was capable of betrayal. Life was simple then. I worked part-time as a freelance designer so I could spend more time with Lily. Our little house on Willow Lane wasn't much, but it was filled with laughter. We'd bake cookies together on weekends, our dog Murphy lying by the oven, waiting for crumbs. When my husband, Mark, passed away unexpectedly, an accident on the highway, I thought my world had ended, but Charlie was there. She handled the funeral arrangements, made sure I ate, and took Lily to school when I couldn't get out of bed. It was Charlie who suggested setting up a trust for Lily. "You need to think ahead," she told me gently one evening. "Something that secures her future, no matter what happens." I wasn't good with numbers, but Charlie was. She offered to help me set it up properly, lawyers, accounts, investments. She said it was her way of honoring Mark, of making sure Lily was always protected. Looking back, I realize how much power I handed her that day. I signed papers I didn't fully understand because they came from her hand, not a stranger's. I remember her words so clearly. "Don't worry, Brandy. Family looks after its own." At the time, it sounded like love. Years passed quietly. Lily grew into a bright, curious girl, brown curls, big eyes, always humming some tune under her breath. Charlie remained close, though work kept her busy. She'd visit every few weeks, staying for dinner, sometimes slipping Lily a folded 20 for her savings. When I was diagnosed with a benign heart condition last year, Charlie was the first to show up. "It's nothing to worry about," she said, squeezing my hand. "Just focus on getting better. I'll handle everything else." I didn't know everything else meant my daughter's entire future. It started small, the way all betrayals do. A few months after my brief hospitalization, I received a letter from the bank. It mentioned recent updates to Lily's trust. I assumed it was a formality, maybe an interest adjustment. I didn't think much of it. But then Charlie started acting different. She avoided eye contact when I mentioned finances. When Lily brought up the college fund, Charlie would smile too quickly, saying, "Let's not worry about that now, sweetheart." One evening, as we sat on my porch sipping tea, I casually asked, "Hey, I got something from the bank the other day. Said there were changes to Lily's trust. Did you hear about that?" Charlie froze for half a second, barely noticeable, but I caught it. She looked down at her cup. Oh yeah, just procedural stuff. They probably needed updated contact info or something. Her voice was smooth, confident. The same voice that used to talk me through every panic attack, every life crisis. Still, something in her eyes didn't match the calm tone. There was a flicker, like guilt, quickly smothered. I brushed it off. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. But the unease lingered. It followed me into my dreams, turning ordinary moments into whispers of doubt. A few weeks later, while sorting through my filing cabinet, I realized one folder, the one marked trust documents, was missing. I tore the drawers apart, checked my desk, even the kitchen counter. Gone. When I called Charlie, she answered cheerfully. Oh, don't panic. I took them to review with a friend who's an accountant. I should have told you. My bad. Her casual tone disarmed me again. I laughed it off. Okay, just don't lose them, please. She promised she wouldn't. But that night, something heavy settled in my stomach. A quiet knowing that I was being kept in the dark. The next morning, I opened my laptop to check the trust account balance, like I'd done dozens of times before. The login failed. I tried again. Invalid credentials. My hands went cold. I stared at the screen, my heart racing. I called the bank, trying to sound calm. After 10 minutes on hold, a polite voice informed me the access information had been recently updated by the account administrator. Who's listed as the administrator? I asked. There was a pause, the kind that carries more weight than any word. Charlie Saunders, the woman finally said. My sister. I ended the call in silence. My breathing grew shallow. The tea I'd made earlier had gone cold beside me. I felt the walls of the room close in, not physically, but in that invisible, suffocating way that only betrayal can make you feel. I wanted to call her immediately, demand an explanation, but a voice inside me whispered, wait, find out everything first. And that's when I decided I wasn't going to confront her yet. I was going to find out exactly what she had done. The next morning, I drove to the local branch of the bank, the one where I'd first opened Lily's trust years ago. The place was quiet, too quiet. The faint smell of disinfectant mixing with the hum of the ceiling lights. I stood at the counter clutching my purse like it was a shield. I just need to confirm something, I said to the teller, forcing a smile. There have been some recent changes to my daughter's trust, and I'd like to review the records. The young woman behind the counter, name tag reading Maya, smiled politely and asked for identification. A few minutes later, she returned, her smile dimmed. I'm sorry, Mrs. Matthews, but your name is no longer listed as a primary contact on the account. I blinked. What do you mean? I set up that account. My husband and I understand, she said gently. But it seems an update was made 2 months ago. The only listed contact now is Charlie Saunders. Charlie. The name echoed in my head like the start of an old song I suddenly hated. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my composure. Can I at least see the changes? I'm afraid I can't release those details without the administrator's permission, she said, lowering her voice. I'm really sorry. That phrase, I'm really sorry, felt like a door closing in my face. I thanked her and walked out, my throat burning. Outside, the autumn wind cut across my skin, sharp and almost cleansing. I sat in my car for a long time, staring through the windshield, watching leaves swirl across the parking lot. Charlie had taken me off my daughter's trust. The trust that was supposed to secure Lily's future. And she'd done it while I was in the hospital, when I was at my most vulnerable. That night, I barely slept. Every sound in the house startled me, the ticking clock, the rustle of Murphy shifting in his bed, the faint creak of the hallway floorboards. I kept replaying memories. Charlie holding Lily as a baby, Charlie reassuring me after Mark's funeral, Charlie telling me to trust her with the details. Every moment of kindness now looked like a well-placed step in a long, deliberate dance. By dawn, I'd made a decision. If Charlie had gone behind my back, I was going to find proof. I started small. I called the law firm that handled the trust originally, a modest office downtown. The lawyer, Mr. Avery, was an older man, kind but cautious. When I mentioned my name, there was a pause. Mrs. Matthews, he said slowly. I'm not sure how much I can disclose without authorization, but I can tell you there were amendments filed recently. They were presented as updates to reflect your wishes. My wishes? I said, the words sharp. I didn't authorize any updates. He sighed. The documents I received had your signature and your sister's. My signature? Yes, they were notarized digitally. Everything looked in order. We assumed you'd approved it. My knees went weak. Can you tell me what changed? I can't share the full file, but I can tell you the beneficiary allocation shifted. A significant portion of the trust was reallocated into a secondary account under M. Saunders' management, presumably for future disbursement. Future disbursement. The words were clinical, detached, almost elegant in their deception. Charlie hadn't just meddled. She had stolen. I hung up, my hands trembling. I opened the small safe in my bedroom closet where I kept family documents, birth certificates, the deed to the house, the original trust paperwork. And there, among the folders, was a fresh envelope I didn't recognize. Inside was a printout, an amendment notice, dated 4 months ago. There, in black ink, was my name. Except it wasn't my handwriting. It was close, painfully close, but not mine. I had a habit of looping the M in my signature, a small flourish at the end. Whoever had signed this had missed it. My heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I felt the blood rush to my head. A hot, dizzy wave of disbelief. Charlie had forged my signature. I picked up the phone and called her. My hands shook so violently I nearly dropped it. She answered on the second ring, her voice light, as if nothing was wrong. Hey, Brandy. How are you feeling? You sound out of breath. I just spoke to Mr. Avery. I said, my voice flat. A pause. He told me about the changes to Lily's trust. The ones I supposedly approved. Silence! I saw the paperwork, Charlie. I said, trying to keep my voice steady. I saw my signature. You forged it. When she finally spoke, her tone was eerily calm. You don't understand, Brandy. And no, I said, my throat tightening. Then make me understand. She exhaled slowly. You've been through so much. After the hospital, after Mark, you were falling apart. I thought if I took some control, it would protect Lily. Keep things stable. By taking her money? It's not like that, she said sharply. I didn't take anything for myself. I moved it to an account where it could grow safely. You're too emotional to handle these things. You always were. There it was, the old dynamic. Her as the caretaker, me as the fragile little sister. I swallowed hard. So you lied to me? Signed my name? I saved you from making bad choices, she snapped. That's what I did. You should be thanking me. The audacity of it stunned me. I stared at the wall, unable to breathe. Charlie, I trusted you. You're Lily's godmother. You swore you'd protect her. Her tone softened slightly, a hint of something almost pitying. I am protecting her. You just can't see it yet. And then, she hung up, just like that. I sat in the quiet house for a long time, staring at my phone, listening to the echo of my sister's voice fade into nothing. There's a specific kind of pain that comes when betrayal wears the face of someone you love. It doesn't scream or burn. It sinks slowly, heavily, like a stone tied to your heart. But somewhere in that silence, beneath the ache, something else began to form. Resolve. She had underestimated me. That night, after Lily went to bed, I opened my laptop and started documenting everything: dates, emails, screenshots, notes from phone calls. I made copies of every document I could find. If Charlie wanted to play with paper trails and signatures, she was about to find out I could read between every line. Because now, this wasn't just about money. It was about trust. And I was done being quiet. The next morning, I woke up before dawn. The house was still dark, Lily asleep upstairs, the dog snoring softly at my feet. I sat at the kitchen table, the same place where I'd first seen the forged documents, and laid everything out before me: printed emails, copies of forms, handwritten notes. I had no idea how far Charlie had gone. But one thing was clear. She'd crossed a line that couldn't be ignored. At first, I wanted to call the police. But the thought of dragging our family name into a legal scandal, of my parents finding out through gossip, made my stomach twist. No. I needed to be smarter. Quieter. If Charlie had built her betrayal through paperwork, I'd use the same language to undo her. Over the next few days, I played the part of the confused younger sister perfectly. I texted her as usual. Thanks for helping with the bills again. You've been amazing. Thinking of making Lily's account more flexible. Maybe we should chat next week? She responded warmly, casually, never suspecting I was watching her every word. Meanwhile, I met with Mr. Avery in person. He was cautious at first, but when I placed the forged signature in front of him and showed him my real one, the color drained from his face. "Mrs. Matthews," he said slowly, "this is serious. If what you're showing me is true, your sister has committed fraud." I nodded, my voice steady. "I don't want a public case. I just want everything restored properly, legally. And I want her to face the consequences quietly." He hesitated, then leaned forward. "There's a way. If we can prove she acted without your consent, we can request an internal review with the trust's financial institution. They'll freeze any linked accounts until ownership is verified." "Would she know?" I asked. "Eventually," he said, "but not right away." That was all I needed to hear. The next 2 weeks were a blur of signatures, notarized statements, and quiet cooperation from the legal team. During the day, I played the role of the clueless sister, coffee chats, polite phone calls, sending pictures of Lily in her school play. At night, I worked in silence, gathering proof. The hardest part was pretending nothing was wrong when Charlie came over one evening with takeout. She looked radiant, polished as ever, hair pulled back in a sleek bun, diamond earrings glinting under the kitchen light. "You look tired," she said, handing me a carton of Thai noodles. "You really need to rest more." I smiled thinly. "Trying to." We ate in near silence, the clink of chopsticks the only sound. I watched her carefully, the way she avoided my eyes whenever Lily mentioned college, or how she shifted topics when I brought up money. At one point, Lily turned to her and said, "Aunt Charlie, did you know Mom said we might move closer to the lake one day?" Charlie's face stiffened for half a second before she forced a smile. "That sounds expensive," she said lightly. "Maybe it's better to stay where things are manageable." There it was again, that subtle control, that quiet superiority. After she left, I closed the door and locked it. I leaned against the wood, my chest heaving with the effort of holding everything inside. The woman who once held my baby like a blessing had become someone I barely recognized. The freeze order went through 2 days later. Mr. Avery called to confirm. "It's done. The accounts are locked pending review. No funds can move until you authorize it." Relief flooded me, but it was bittersweet, because I knew what would happen next. Charlie called at evening. Her voice, once calm and confident, was now clipped, sharp. "Brandy, what did you do?" I feigned confusion. "What do you mean?" "The trust. The accounts. They're frozen. The bank called me today. They said there's a dispute." I let out a soft sigh. "Oh, that's strange. Maybe it's part of their security process?" "Don't play dumb," she hissed. "You reported me, didn't you?" I said nothing. Just silence, the kind that tells the truth louder than words ever could. Her tone cracked. "You don't know what you're doing. This could ruin everything." "Everything?" I repeated quietly. "You mean the system you built on lies? On my daughter's future?" "You're being dramatic," she snapped. "It was just a reallocation. You'd thank me if you knew how much I've grown that money." I was trying to help. I laughed, not from humor, but disbelief. "You forged my name. You took what wasn't yours. You don't get to call that help." For the first time, she had no answer. The silence stretched until she hung up. That night, I sat by the window long after Lily had gone to bed. The moonlight spilled across the table, catching the edges of the paperwork I'd spent weeks gathering. Part of me wanted to cry, but I didn't. I just sat there, tracing the grain of the wood beneath my fingers, feeling the weight of what I'd done and what I was about to do next. Because freezing the accounts wasn't the end. It was the beginning of her reckoning. A few days later, our parents called an impromptu family dinner. They wanted to clear the air. Charlie must have told them something, because when I arrived, the tension in the room was thick enough to taste. Mom's voice was trembling when she said, "Brandy, your sister told us there's been a misunderstanding. Something about the trust?" I glanced at Charlie across the table. Her expression was composed, but her hands, perfectly manicured, fidgeted with her napkin. "Yes," I said simply. "There has been a misunderstanding. She stole from my daughter." Mom gasped softly. Dad's brow furrowed. "Brandy, that's a serious accusation." I looked directly at Charlie. "Then she can deny it." Charlie's jaw tightened. "You're twisting things." I managed the trust responsibly. I just shifted funds for better returns. I reached into my bag and placed a folder on the table and forged my signature to do it. Her face went pale. Inside the folder was everything: copies, correspondence, verification reports from the law firm. For a long, awful minute, no one spoke. Then Dad said quietly, "Charlie, is this true?" She looked at him, then at me. Her lips trembled, but she said nothing. Mom started crying. "How could you do this to your own sister? To your niece?" Charlie stood abruptly, chair scraping the floor. "You all act like I'm some criminal. I was trying to help. Brandy doesn't understand finance. She never has." Her voice rose, trembling. "I've cleaned up after her my whole life. You think it's easy being the responsible one?" I stared at her, stunned. "You didn't clean up after me, Charlie. You cleaned me out." The room fell silent again. Then, softly, Dad said, "Get out." Charlie froze. "Until you fix this," he said, his voice breaking. "Don't come back." She looked at me, anger, shame, and something else flickering behind her eyes, and then she left. The front door slammed like thunder. I sat there, tears streaming down my face, not from triumph but from loss. Because even though justice was being served, it didn't feel like victory. It felt like mourning for the sister I thought I had, and the trust I'd never get back. In the weeks that followed that dinner, my phone barely stopped ringing. Our parents tried to mediate. Extended family called, whispering half-truths disguised as concern. And Charlie? She disappeared. Her number went straight to voicemail, her social media accounts wiped clean. For a moment, I wondered if she'd skipped town entirely. But then the letters started arriving. One from the bank, one from the trust's compliance department, and one, a short, venomous note from Charlie herself. "You've humiliated me. You'll regret this." I remember standing in the kitchen, holding that note in my shaking hand, feeling an ache that went deeper than anger. Because despite everything, part of me still loved her. Still remembered the sister who used to braid my hair before school, who once stood up to a bully for me. That version of Charlie was gone now, replaced by someone hardened by pride and greed. Meanwhile, the review process moved quickly. Mr. Avery and his team confirmed everything: the forged signature, the unauthorized transfers, the reallocation Charlie had called an investment. They restored full ownership of the trust to me and, by extension, to Lily. The institution even offered an apology for their lack of verification. I felt vindicated, yes, but also strangely hollow. Because when you spend years building your life around someone's love and loyalty, and then watch that person dismantle it piece by piece, the victory doesn't taste sweet. It just feels necessary. About 3 weeks later, I ran into Charlie by accident. It was a Saturday morning at the farmer's market. I was buying flowers with Lily when I heard her voice behind me, sharp, clipped, unmistakable. "Randy." I froze. Turning around, I saw her standing there, sunglasses perched on her head. But her eyes, those eyes that used to shine with confidence, looked tired, even frightened. "Charlie." She folded her arms, her tone defensive. "I didn't expect to see you here. I live here," I said simply. There was a pause. The sounds of chatter and laughter filled the space between us. "I wanted to call," she said finally, voice wavering. "But I figured you'd just hang up." "I might have," I admitted. She nodded, glancing at Lily. "She's getting so big." Lily looked up at me, sensing the tension, then whispered, "Mom, can we go?" I nodded toward the car. "Go ahead, sweetheart. I'll be right there." Once she was out of earshot, Charlie sighed. "You really had to drag everyone into it, didn't you? Mom won't even talk to me." I stared at her, incredulous. "Charlie, you stole from my child. What did you expect me to do? Pretend it didn't happen?" Her lip trembled. "I didn't steal. I just took what I thought I deserved." "Deserved?" I repeated, stunned. She looked away, her voice low. "You got the husband, the kid, the house, the love. I got nothing. Always second place. Always fixing things you broke. I thought maybe if I handled the trust, I'd finally have something that was mine too." The words hit me like a slap. "You could have asked," I whispered. "I would have helped you." She gave a bitter laugh. "You always say that, Brandy. Like help doesn't come with pity." I didn't know what to say. She turned to leave, then stopped. For what it's worth, she said quietly, I didn't touch a penny of Lily's principal, just the interest. It's all there. Then she walked away, her heels clicking against the pavement, fading into the hum of the market. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice, the mixture of guilt and resentment woven into every word. Maybe that was her truth. Maybe she really believed she'd earned it somehow. But what haunted me wasn't her excuse. It was the realization that envy had been living quietly between us for years, like a vine wrapping itself around everything we built. And I'd been too blind to notice. Months passed. Life slowly returned to its rhythm. Lily started high school. I went back to work part-time. We adopted a cat, painted the living room, and tried to fill the house with laughter again. The trust, fully restored, sat safely under new management, this time with independent oversight. Sometimes, late at night, I'd open the drawer where I kept the original documents, now sealed in a folder marked finalized. It wasn't about the money anymore. It was about the lesson carved into those papers, a reminder of what trust costs when it's misplaced. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from Mom. She's been seeing a counselor, she said softly. Charlie, she asked me to tell you she's sorry. I didn't answer right away. Mom hesitated. She's not the same, Brandy. Losing everyone changed her. She's moving out of state. Starting fresh. A long silence hung between us. Finally, I said, That's good. Do you want to talk to her? I thought about Lily, her laughter, her future. About the years I'd spent trying to keep peace in a family that cracked anyway. Not yet, I said. Maybe someday. Mom sighed, but there was understanding in her voice. You've always been the forgiving one. I smiled faintly. Not forgiving, just tired. The following spring, I took Lily to the lake, the same one we'd always dreamed of moving near. We brought sandwiches, sat under the willow tree, and watched the water shimmer like glass. Do you miss Aunt Charlie? Lily asked suddenly. I took a breath. Sometimes, I said. But missing someone doesn't mean you can let them hurt you again. She nodded slowly, thinking. Do you think she misses us? I think she does, I said quietly. But people have to live with the choices they make. All we can do is hope they learn from them. Lily reached out and took my hand. You're the strongest person I know, Mom. I looked at her, really looked, and realized that in all the wreckage, that was the one thing Charlie could never take. Not our bond. Not our resilience. Just us. Years later, when Lily turned 18, she asked me to show her the trust documents. I watched her eyes move across the signatures, the official seals, the restored ownership line that bore her name. When she looked up, I said, That's your future protected. But never forget, trust is something you build carefully, and you guard it even more carefully. She smiled softly. Like you did. I shook my head. No, like we both will. And in that moment, I realized something. Revenge isn't always about making the other person suffer. Sometimes, the truest revenge is living your life fully, freely, without the weight of their betrayal on your back. When I look back now, I can still see that day in the lawyer's office so clearly. The way the ink bled slightly as I signed my daughter's future into what I thought were safe hands. Trust is strange that way. It doesn't break loudly. It just erodes in quiet moments you almost miss. People ask me if I ever forgave Charlie. The truth is, forgiveness isn't a single act. It's something that unfolds slowly, like a bruise fading. I don't hate her anymore. But I don't miss her either. What I learned is that forgiveness doesn't mean letting someone back into your life. Sometimes it means letting yourself move on without the bitterness. Because revenge, real revenge, isn't about making them hurt. It's about reclaiming your peace. It's about waking up one morning and realizing their shadow no longer defines your light. There are still days when I think of her, when Lily graduates, when we celebrate birthdays. And I wonder if she ever truly understood the damage she caused. Maybe she does now. Maybe she doesn't. Either way, I've stopped waiting for her apology to make things right. We made things right on our own. So if you're watching this and someone you love has betrayed you, a sister, a parent, a friend, I want you to remember this. You don't have to destroy them to win. You just have to choose you again. And that's what I did. I chose my daughter. I chose truth. I chose to build something honest out of the wreckage. Would you have done what I did? Would you have confronted your own sister or walked away quietly? Tell me in the comments below. And if my story reminded you that strength and forgiveness can exist in the same heart, then don't forget to subscribe. Because every story here carries one lesson. Revenge can begin in anger, but it always ends in healing.